Hey, everybody. Happy early Friday. I am super honored, super blessed to have my friend Joe Salatin in the house today. I was just telling Joel just seconds ago that I don't think he gets anywhere near enough credit because, everyone knows him as the regenerative farmer and the lunatic farmer and all of these things. But I can tell you guys that I sit on a board with Joel, and he's super, super rounded and knows many, many things. And so I'm super excited to have you, Joel. Thank you for being on. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Tag. It's mutual. I'm honored and privileged to be with you. Yes.
Yep. Super cool. Real quick, I thought I would tell everybody the story of how I first met you because I find it was a big moment in my life. You've been a leader and mentor to so many people. We were at the Self-Reliance Festival and in Tennessee, and I was speaking, and Joel spoke that day, and it was really I don't know what the word even was, humbling, terrifying, kind of all of the above. I was speaking, giving my class about building community, and in the front row sat Joel taking notes, and it kind of, I remember sitting there going, dude, Joel Salatin, the Joe Salatin is sitting in the audience taking notes while I'm speaking. Anyway, it was empowering to me, Joel.
Great. Well, I'm a anybody that knows my story knows that I was a journalist for a couple of years before I came back to the farm full time. That was my 2.5 year off farm stint, and I'm an old college debater and was on the debate team, extemporaneous speaking, all that stuff, and so I'm a prodigious note taker. I just find that I've got notes all over this place. I've got files of notes of conferences and speeches and stuff. Because if you, back in our day, Tad, we grew up taking notes. We didn't have smartphones and all this recording stuff. And so, if you were interested in something, you took some notes. And so, I've got lots and lots of notes around, and it's fun to refer to them from time to time and whatever, resurrect stuff that, points that that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I applaud that about you. You're definitely a thinking guy. And, when we sit in those, lack of a better word, those board meetings, I can tell that about you. And I think it's good. And I think it's healthy. I think more people should get back to that. I can see all the books behind you. You talk about it all the time. And I think that's fascinating. I was watching some of your videos earlier this week, and you were talking about agricultural books, and you were talking about, you only read the older ones, right? That's still true?
Well, pretty much. Although I will tell you that these days, a lot of my reading, I don't know that it's half of it yet, but it's a lot of my reading is new manuscripts. People that are writing books about farming or homesteading or soil or something, and they want me to do a foreword for them. I've done milk sheep books, all sorts of things, and it's a delight to. It's like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain, before the show starts, to be able to get a manuscript in a rough form and be able to read it before it's actually in book form. So I do a lot of that now. So yeah, I guess I'm on the two ends of the spectrum. I especially like the old ag books, but now I'm reading a lot of the new stuff even before it comes out. So maybe that's a healthy balance.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Joel, I thought we would talk today a little bit about. You can go on a million videos and listen to Joe Salatin talk about regenerative farming, right? There's a lot of them out there. You are very traveled and obviously a kingpin kind of in that world. But I'd like to take kind of a little bit of a different approach today. And the system, Joel, I know you know this. You and I talk about this all the time. Is broken. The education system's broken. The medical system's broken. The agriculture system's broken. The food system's broken. The executive branch don't work for us. The legislative branch don't work for us. What got us here, in your opinion? How did we get where we are to where we're at?
Well, I think we got here by giving too much power to the federal government. So I make a big distinction between the federal government and state and local governments. This country was founded on there wasn't 50 states at the time, but it was founded on a multi-state experiment. And the federal government, this is what the Constitution was. The Constitution is essentially a fence around what the federal government can do. It's not a document that empowers. It's a document that that puts a boundary around what the federal government can do. And so the idea was that one state might say, it's not the government's responsibility to have anything to do with education. So We're not going to have any government schools at all, any public schools. We'll have really low taxes, and people can buy their own education. Another state says, well, I think it is the government's responsibility, but we're going to let people choose their own education. So we're not going to have any public schools. What we'll give is every parent that has a kid, we'll give them a voucher. They can spend it wherever they want to. And that one. And then you have another state that says, oh, we think it should be all the state. State should have public schools, and we all should pay for it, and the kids should all go there. And the beauty of that is that people in adjoining states can look over there and you can see SAT scores, you can see dropout rates, you can see, which state is building more delinquency centers, which state is do the kids take more fentanyl, and you can look at that. The problem is that our country has completely gotten away from as I think Thomas Jefferson said, the chains that constrain and bind the federal government. And we have arrogated to the federal government all these things that used to be done at state and local level. And what that does is that not only does it make a one-size-fit-all approach, it reduces experimentation and creativity out in the countryside. And the main thing is that it makes the stakes. So when there is a disagreement on an issue, the stakes are so high because it's a winner take all, and that elevates the discussion to a pitch that doesn't occur at the state or local level, and so the reason the country has a K Street is because all of our freedoms are for sale at the federal level. I mean, you almost have to get a license to pee. And so, if our freedoms were not for sale, i.e. if the federal government were not, intervening in every minutia decision of our country, there wouldn't be a K Street because nothing would be for sale. And so I think we got here incrementally. I mean, you can look back to some pretty big things, when Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson started the Federal Reserve, and then of course you've got Roosevelt in World War II starts Social Security. You can see some kind of big things, but in general, it's just been an incremental move of moving our decisions, our cultural decisions, moving it out of the locale, out of the community, and moving it to the federal level.
Yeah. So is fixing it as simple as getting the power back in the hands of the state?
Yes. I absolutely. I think it's as simple as emasculating the federal power. If you, and of course now we have so many people dependent on federal largesse that it becomes very, very difficult to to prune the teat suckers, and so we've got so many people, so many non-productive people at the public trough that the problem is, here's the thing, in a locale, let's talk about, any program that helps poor people. All right. Whatever, it's homeless or whatever it is, unwed mothers, whatever. In a locality, in a community, people know who the people are who are gaming the system and not really in need. But at the federal level, it just becomes this massive nameless, faceless program that can't. It's too big to govern. We've heard too big to fail. Well, there is such a thing as being too big to govern, and you can move to that point where good intentions at the federal level are completely different than good intentions at the local level, simply because of the accountability that comes with having, the butcher, baker, and candlestick maker embedded in a community. People know who they are, what they do, where they go, and where the kids go, and who's really needy and who's not. So yes, I think it is. I mean, I think so. Then the question is, I know you're asking the questions, but
no, Joel, let's just talk. This is awesome. I got Joel Salain on my team, on my live.
Yeah. So then the question gets to be, so if the culture, if the civilization had the will to do this, how can you do it without, well, without, catastrophic pulling the rug out of people, all this. And so I think there are two ways. One would be to simply start a strategic, 5% a year cut across the board, everything, cut the board, 5%. I don't care where you cut it. I don't care what you do. Every federal department has a 5% cut or 4% or whatever, but something more than 1%, but it's got to be, and it can be incremental, and you just start cutting. Another one that I think really is innovative and has some potential is what if we on taxes, if you and I could designate where our taxes went by category, so that now you couldn't have 100, but if you had, for example, Department of Education, Department of Health, Department of Housing, Defense Department, Department of Interior, and basically we could designate our taxes to go to this department. Suddenly, you would be able to pull all the lobbying and the whining and the crybabying out of the legislature, and people would directly support the department they wanted. The folks that wanted a big war machine, they send their money to the Pentagon. The people that want to take care of the unwed mothers, they can send it to the housing or housing department. The people that want health can send it to the health department. In other words, you get to actually vote with your tax dollars. And boy, wouldn't that, I really believe that would actually create some big surprises in our culture when these agencies saw, well, nobody thinks we're important. Or you mean nobody thinks we're important? Wouldn't that be cool? And you could actually direct vote, and that would be cool. So, I mean, there are certainly other ways to do it, but those are, there's just a couple of thoughts. I'm not a drastic, cause people complete hardship, but goodness, if we don't do something, we're going to have complete economic collapse.
Yeah, one of the things you said there I think is super interesting. I think our culture's gotten to a point where we're so dependent on people doing things for us. Do you think our culture today, our people today, have it in them to be self-accountable? Because the only way you shrink the size of government, right, is to increase the accountability of the individual, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do we have it in us?
Well, some of us do. And this is why the opt-out provision is so important. Let's take Social Security, let's take Medicare. Okay. I'm old enough I'm supposed to be getting Medicare for a couple of years. Well, I don't take Medicare because I don't want the government to tell me where to go. Now, I paid in thousands and thousands of dollars to Medicare over the years, but I'm not going to use it. Somebody else will use it who didn't, who they're going to take my money and use it for them, or Social Security. Okay. The requirement is the problem. And if you allow people an opt-out option and you say, okay, if you don't want to participate in Social Security, that's fine. But when you get old, there's not going to be a government check to you. And if I sign off and say, yep, I'm willing to do that. Well, then if I hit 70 and I have no income, well, then I either have to depend on somebody else's good graces, philanthropically, or I die and starve to death. But to me, that is far more, that's far more just, if you will. It's far more fair and just than requiring every single person to take their hard-earned money and pay into a system that pays a pittance compared to if you put it in a stock market or something else. And we don't even have the choice. We live in a time of where choice is everything. You've got choice in the bedroom, choice in the bathroom, choice in the womb. But look at the stuff that we don't have a choice on. Choice like food, choice like being able to opt out of Social Security, being able to opt out of, some of these things, you don't have a choice. So the operative term for those of us who do want to exercise choice in this, what we see as a dysfunctional system is a desire to disentangle. Can we disentangle from everything possible? And that's what's driving the homestead movement. It's what's driving the, agri-hoods, agri-communities. It's what's driving, community-supported agriculture. It's all sorts of things are being driven by this basic concept of how do I disentangle from that system?
Yeah, there's so much in there to unpack. We have 428 federal agencies today, in our federal government, and with the Department of Government Efficiency with Elon and them, that's 429. And so I think the magic question that I have in this to you, Joel, is how do we not just trade one ruler for another?
Well, that's my biggest fear with this new administration. And so in perfect transparency, I was very, very happy with last week's election, or with the recent election. I'm very, very, very happy with it. Compared to the alternative.
Right.
But what I'm and I'm already getting calls. Well, we need to, instead of giving money to Monsanto, we need to give money to startup farmers. Mm-hmm. No, or instead of subsidizing, Coca-Cola, we need to subsidize organic carrots. No, the problem is then if we do that, our side has now stooped to the trough, just like their side did. No, what we need to do is abolish the program completely. And this is and listen, nobody's happier than RFK Jr.'s role in this whole thing as I am. But as I've told him and his inner circle, I love him to death. You got to love somebody that sued the government 150 times.
Right.
But the problem is his suits are always, I want the government to do more. I want the EPA isn't doing their job, or whatever is not doing their job. And what I would ask for is just abolish the agency, abolish the whole thing, and be done with it. And then of course people say, yeah, but you can't trust people. You can't. Well, then the underlying philosophy of somebody that says, well, you can't trust business, or you can't, is the underlying philosophy is business people are inherently more corrupt than bureaucracy. And I fundamentally reject the notion that business people as a group are fundamentally more corrupt than a bureaucracy. I reject that out of hand.
Well, and I think the smarts is in the people. I mean, there's been more great things that have come out of entrepreneurship, in my opinion, than ever to come out of any type of government agency.
Well, yeah, because the government agency has to please 51% of the people.
Yeah.
And so that means inherently it has to be status quo oriented. It has to be it has to carry with it an orthodox narrative. The fact that that innovation is always challenging the status quo is why no government agency can ever actually do something that is fundamentally upsetting of the current system. It's an oxymoron. You cannot have a system that has to please 51% of the people doing something that upsets the overall paradigm. Which is again, we're back to the problem of, we're glad for the election, but can they actually pull it off? I don't know. I mean, just think of, RFK Jr. has already, promised to eliminate SNAP payments, supplemental nutritional assistance program, the old food stamp program, SNAP. $9 billion of SNAP, 10% of the SNAP budget goes to sugary soft drinks, Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper. I mean, just think of the whining and carrying on the PR campaign that's going to be done if he actually says we're not going to spend SNAP money on high fructose corn syrup sugary drinks anymore, carbonated drinks. We're not going to do it. I mean, that's a direct $9 billion subsidy to Coke. They'll say, well, then we're going to have to lay off employees. Now you want unemployment. You want people destitute. And I mean, you know, the pushback will be extreme.
Yeah, it will be super extreme. This is kind of why I asked you earlier about, do we have the stomach for it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what's coming, like a lot of people are excited that Trump got elected, as I am, because again, what was the alternative? And some of these cabinet picks I think have been fabulous. Some of them, like, and you don't have to comment, but like Rubio, I wasn't happy with, but generally I think they've been okay. But if they do half the things they said they're going to do, there's going to be an uproar.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I absolutely agree. It's like the difference between this time and last time when Trump got elected. Trump, I think when he went in the first time, he wasn't nearly as wise to the machinations of this. He didn't realize how deep the deep state was, I think. And he was look, nobody wants to fight all the time. You gotta have some friends. You can't just fight with everybody. So he was trying to, to get some people that he could, not have to fight with. And I get that. And I think being out for 4 years and being chased every day, he's been out for 4 years. He's much wiser and much more aware of the interconnectedness and depth of the deep state. So yeah, I mean, picking Matt Gaetz for Attorney General is just, I mean, that's like off the reservation, man. That's clear off the reservation, and I'm thrilled for it. But yeah, the stomach for it, it'll be interesting to see. So the cry will be, well, you're uncharitable, you're unloving, you don't care about people. And my answer there is very clear. I'm a Christian libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer, and I tell people, they say, well, Jesus said to take care of the poor and the whole, all this. I say, yeah, but he never asked the government to do it. He looked at his followers and said, you do it. So people conflate charity of personal charity, helping my neighbor, with some, with societal nameless, faceless help of people who check boxes. And that is not charity. That's actually squandering potential philanthropic charitable money from producers, squandering it into a bureaucracy so it can't even be dispensed efficiently into the people who really need it.
Yeah, I really hope that, through this process, they can shrink the size of government. We have a culture that, we're either the number 3, number 2, or number 1 fattest country in the world every single year, and I really hope they can crush it. But I am very concerned that the MAHA, and I love Make America Healthy Again. What a great thing to do.
Yeah.
It creates more bureaucracy and it creates more agencies. And, I hope not. And I hope that, you, and again, don't feel like you need to comment on this, but I hope that you, with all the things going on in your world, that you can get a grasp on whether or not that's true or not. Maybe some other day we'll have another conversation about it. But I really hope we can shrink the size of government.
Yeah. Well, we have to. I mean, the problem is that the what's it called? I'm lost for the word. Anyway, the obligatory part of the budget, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP, the obligatory parts of the budget are now 90%.
Yeah.
So when you say, shrink the government, shrink the budget, you're only talking about 10%. Well, we've got to shrink it by 50%. We can't go in there and do some little tweaking. We got to take a chainsaw to it. And so that will make a lot of people, upset. But the more I talk to, people that know more about the inside workings than I do, the more I appreciate the interconnectedness of things. I mean, let's take an example. Let's take immigration. That's a hot issue. Yeah. All right. So if Trump actually begins deporting people, what happens is the big business like JBS and Tyson and stuff like, they start screaming because their workforce is going to leave because they say Americans won't do this kind of work. All right. And so listen, if I was a CEO of Tyson, and 30% of my workforce was, an illegal foreigner, I'd scream too. I understand that. But, and so these folks who have come and they're working in those, dirty jobs, if you will, bless their hearts, they're trying to get ahead. They're in there scrubbing and doing and getting after it. And so the, the immigration thing is a big deal, but it's linked to the welfare system that pays millions of Americans not to work. If we didn't have a welfare system, then suddenly Americans would take those jobs because their neighbors would say, "You're a lazy bum. I'm not helping you." And I'm gonna save my money for the neighbor whose house burns down, and I'll help them get restarted. But I'm not going to help you because you're a lazy bum. But we don't have any of that kind of accountability in the system, and so these what I'm seeing is it's holistic. Everything relates to everything, and the dysfunction is also just as the cure. Everything relates to everything. The dysfunction, everything relates to everything. And you can't just, take this over here and then you have repercussions over here. Well, now you've got to deal with this. You got to do this. So you really have to have this comprehensive. And I think that's what, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are there for. They're looking at the whole, the whole comprehensive package, trying to figure out, okay, if we do this here, it's going to affect this over here, affect this, and we've gotten here by not doing it too. We need electric vehicles. All right, let's pour billions and billions of dollars into electric vehicles before we have a power grid big enough to keep them electrified, before we have batteries that can make them go, and before we have lithium that can even give them batteries. And suddenly now we have this. You know more about energy than I do, but we have this crazy thing where the automakers are supposedly having to make cars that nobody wants to buy, and people like me that want an internal combustion engine because I can actually go places with it. The price has doubled for us because there aren't enough of them around anymore, and you create shortages over here, drive the price of cars up, and then everybody's grumbling and unhappy because, and so. We have to realize, I think, on our side, if we say shrink government, we have to realize that we can't just cherry pick either. We have to realize that that we have to take a holistic approach to get out, unlike the unholistic, single issue agenda that got us into the problem.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think as we rip the Band-Aid off and, we talk about there's going to be all kinds of, people complaining, that this Band-Aid got ripped off. But I think once personal accountability begins to set back in, people will learn how empowering it is. For me in my personal life, I'm so empowered by the fact that I don't have to ask anybody for anything. I do it all for myself. Like, right. I am so thankful I'm not in a suit anymore and I'm in the dirt every day. I think there's a flip side to that. Maybe you talk about a little bit too, that maybe there's an awakening here.
Yes. Well, I think so. I think, and that has come as a result of mistrust of our major institutions. And that was facilitated, of course, really by Fauci and COVID, the whole COVID thing. And so, I just saw a report a couple of days ago that pre-COVID, almost 70% of people marked, very trustworthy to doctors, very trustworthy. Today, that's down to like 31%. It's as low as the media, and so Tag, what happens is when you have that level of breakdown in trust, the other side of that is you have an elevation of self-reliance and independence. Right. That's what happened. And so now we're seeing people getting an acre, moving back to the land. I mean, it's a tsunami that's going on, and I think it's come as a necessity when people look around and say, who can I trust? And they realize, well, I can't trust anybody. Yeah. And so, like on our farm, when Putin invaded Ukraine and fertilizer jumped 400%, and all the farmers are out here crying the blues, we're all going to go bankrupt. Here on our farm, we just laughed because we don't buy any of it. It didn't affect us. So suddenly somebody like us has this tremendous leg up argument, whatever. We have this inspiring narrative story to tell our farmer friends, look, guys, if you go to a carbon economy on your farm, composting, and buy chippers instead of fertilizer spreaders, you don't need to trust Putin or Morocco rock phosphate or whatever this stuff is. And so I think you're right. I think there is a definite shaking in the land toward self-reliance, and people have been pushed into it when their old tried and true institutions are now untrustworthy. They're failing them. And so what's the only other thing you can do? The only thing you can do is, well, who can I trust? Well, I can trust me. And so that's where people turn. And I'm very excited to see it. I mean, the collapse of things, you don't like catastrophe very much. I mean, I don't like to see people harmed, but man, oh man, there's this little demon on my shoulder that would love to see complete economic collapse in our country, because if we had complete economic collapse, yeah, it would be hardship. But suddenly people like you and I in our communities out in the country with our full freezers and our, we would ride it out. We would flourish. And suddenly the country would be looking, well, who are the people that are riding this out, that are thriving in this situation? Oh, it's the people who saved, who had gardens, who preserved food in their kitchen, who had a stack of firewood, who had an alternative source of water. Those are the people that are thriving. Well, maybe that'd be a good thing to do. And so, yeah, that's there is a demon on my shoulder that says a little bit of hardship might help us a little bit.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's a demon. I think that getting back to, the greatest generation ever, there was a reason they were the greatest generation ever, right? And getting back to having some grit and some toughness about you, and getting back to a part where you rely on yourself and can do the basic things in life. I don't think that's a demon thing at all. I think that's bringing back what makes America, what has made America such a great country. Is that piece. We talk about that resurgence of self-dependency and self-reliance. I'm interested in that. There's been this big movement over the last, especially 4 years, many people buying their acre, like what you talk about, and those kind of things. But now that Trump has been elected, do you think does that push go further because of RFK and because of all of the agenda items that are coming down the pipe? Or do people fall back into complacency and say, RFK and Trump's got this and I don't need to worry about it, I'm going to go watch the next movie?
Oh man. Wow. Boy, there's one thing I don't do, Tag. I never prophesy. I have a file of stupid prophecies, like Tom Watson in 1966, he was CEO of IBM. He said the world market for computers is about 6. This is the CEO of IBM in 1966. So I collect these things. I've got a whole file of these. They're hilarious. And so man, black swans happen. And goodness, as far as I'm concerned, almost Trump's election here is almost a black swan. I didn't think it would happen. I just didn't think. I mean, I spoke at the Ron Paul Institute in DC about 2 months ago. So I'm in there with all these, 300 whatever wonks. All I can say is they're political wonks. They just live, breathe, and eat politics. And they told me that the whole election was going to boil down to 17 counties in 10 states and 80,000 votes. and everybody there told me that that there was no way in the world Trump would win because the Democrats would cheat or do something. Because if they could concentrate all of their creative power on 17 counties in 10 states, there's no way that you could actually counter that. And so I left there kind of, well, okay, that's the way it goes. That's the way all these guys think. And here we are. So I'm just thrilled that it's given me a little bit of faith in the country, actually, that, well, maybe there are people, and I don't agree with Trump on everything by any means. Okay. But man, the guy has he's been standing where nobody else will stand for a long time. And he's just he just won't. He's the tar baby, he just won't give up. People sock him and then they're just stuck. So yeah, I have no idea how this is going to play out. I just don't. And not the least of which is concerned that he'll survive and not be assassinated. And so I love seeing most of his cabinet appointments have been completely off the reservation mavericks. And I just think if he can maintain his momentum, what you'd like to see is that the momentum actually gains enough that he can actually make some positive changes fast enough that the left is embarrassed.
Yeah, some real change.
Yeah, some real change. And I don't know if that can happen, but it would be he's got a short runway. He's got a short runway to actually deliver. I actually did a podcast yesterday with a guy who's actually, high up enough he actually personally knows Elon Musk and this kind of thing. And he was he's a political wonk. And it was sobering to listen to him. He said okay, they're in, but he said the challenge now is they've got to deliver, because if they don't bring prices down, if they don't shrink government, if they don't drop taxes, if they don't drop energy, if they don't close the border, if they don't deliver, we won't forgive them. We won't forgive them for that. And so they have to deliver. And I think Trump understands that. I think he does. But it was a sobering thing to realize it's one thing to get elected. It's another thing to deliver.
Well, and all the promises and the proclamations that have been made, that's a hefty task.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And especially the other little thing that I was thinking about before the election was I was actually a little bit ambivalent. I mean, I wanted Trump to win, but I didn't see him losing as the most terrible thing, because I'm sure you're like me. You're watching this national debt. I mean, this debt snowball is now 31 trillion. In other words, the interest is now the biggest item in the budget. And if only 10% of the budget is actually negotiable, that's actually not enough. You have to do some serious stuff otherwise. And boy, do you think baby boomers are going to let them mess with Social Security? I mean, that's a sacred cow. They can't mess with that. Do you think, retirees are going to let them mess with Medicare? Oh my goodness, that'd be like, so you're left with defense, you're left with education, housing. There are things that you've got there, but there's not a lot of wiggle room. So if you're reading, people like, David Stockman, Reagan's, financial guy, Department of Treasury. If you're reading what these guys are saying, my concern is that they can't get it under control fast enough, and we actually have a collapse on Trump's watch. And I was thinking, well, let Kamala go in, let the collapse happen on Kamala's watch, and then they can blame Kamala. But if the collapse happens on Trump's watch because he can't get the interest under control fast enough, then everybody's going to blame whoever's in power when the wheels fall off is going to get blamed for it, whoever's in power.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's plenty of actors that would love nothing more than for Trump to fail.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. There's a lot of people wishing he would fail. Almost probably some people want him to fail as badly as Joe Biden wanted Kamala Harris to fail.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching today, and there's a whole bunch of your rhinos or deep state Republicans totally hammering on Trump's picks, and it seems like to me he's going to have to fight a fair amount of Republicans and the Democrats the whole way, while trying to deal with the worst financial situation we've ever been in, while dealing with immigration, while dealing with all of these things. It'd be pretty hard. That's why I worry about him and expectations. If we set the expectations so high that he can't win.
Well, you're exactly right. I think that's my biggest concern for this administration is that people are expecting so much. I mean, there are things that he can change pretty rapidly. I mean, energy costs, I'm sure he can change rapidly by opening up our energy sector. That can change relatively fast, certainly within a couple of years. But some of the other things, man, there's just nothing you can do about Social Security and the fact that when it started, there were 10 workers for every retiree, and now there's only 2. And the way the demographics are going, there's only going to be 1.5, in another 5 years. I mean, you can't carry that. It's like the cost of, we're down to 1 in 34 autistic children, and my heart breaks for these parents because they've got a lot. How does a culture survive when you have that many dependents in a government program? I mean, my heart breaks for it, but the practical reality of it is, how does a culture handle that? Just like, what is it now? Only 20% of military age young people can pass the physical to get into the military. Only 20%. We've got some trajectories that are really, really troubling.
Well, and talk about trajectories, that's an interesting thing. So that world, and specifically in the Western world, but birth rates have been crashing, right? Over a whole bunch. Right. So how does the crashing birth rates affect this, and how does it affect agriculture? Because doesn't it not force us back to industrial ag because of people, or does it self-fix itself? Or what do you think about the falling birth rates?
Yeah, well, the falling birth rates are one reason why immigration is so important. So here, my take on immigration is, if he actually does control the border, what they'll do is they will start issuing, they will double the number of foreign worker visas, because trust me, they're not going to let Tyson be without employees. Right. And so if they refuse to fix welfare and get people back to work, what they'll do, and they do succeed at closing the border, there's no question in my mind, but what legal immigration is going to go through the roof. And, that may not be the worst thing that ever happens, to have legal immigration come in. It certainly has saved our country in the past and been a good thing. And so that wouldn't be the worst. But yeah, the declining birth rates are really serious, and especially in China. Yeah. And so China has a much bigger catastrophe looking at them than we do here in the U.S. And what's interesting is that the sperm counts are so low in the U.S. that a lot of it is not cultural norms, like people waiting later to have babies or that sort of thing. A lot of it is people are waiting so late to have babies that they're not fertile anymore. Yeah. And so unlike China, where that's not happening, in China it was a cultural, the one baby policy. It's not a matter of fertility; it's a matter of domestic policy. But China, I think, has a much bigger problem than the U.S. But the entire Western, every place but Africa is seeing this drop in babies, and that especially becomes difficult when you have these massive massive federal programs that depend. It's like a Ponzi scheme. They all depend on more people entering the system than are taking from the system. They all depend on that. It's a grand Ponzi scheme. And so when the baby spigot starts to shut off, and you don't have as many people coming in as demanding services, then none of this stuff works, and it becomes very painful.
Yeah, well, maybe if we had a system that wasn't dependent on infinite growth, the falling birth rate wouldn't be as big an issue.
That's correct. That is correct. And so, so the question then is, well, what is progress? We'll say. I don't want to use the word progressive. What is progress? What is progress that is not growth? Is there a way to have progress that doesn't require more water, more minerals, more coal, more oil? Right. And so, I'm thinking back. For example, we had years ago, we had this wonderful mechanic who did most of our, we now have an on-farm mechanic, but back then we had a neighbor that did a lot of our mechanic work that was beyond me. And I remember him well telling me that in the late 1960s, there were several, more than one, kind of backyard tinkerer mechanics that figured out how to make 100-mile-per-gallon carburetor for cars. The late 60s, we're talking about muscle cars, big V8s and these, big muscle car engines. And he said that there were a handful, maybe 5 or 6 sharp people who figured out how to make 100 MPG carburetors. And every time they would patent it, immediately either a petroleum company or an automobile company would buy the patent and shut it down. And these people just summarily got shut down every time. Now, tag, it culturally, that is unconscionable, immoral thing that we had the opportunity to leave that oil in the ground for future generations. And instead we squandered it on 15 MPG cars that could have been getting 100. Just because some big corporate entity, and so there again, that brings to mind this. I'm sure that these mechanics. I mean, I'm going back to like 1915. People don't realize in 1915 there were 1,500 brands of automobiles. In 1915. A lot of them were being made by little, 2 and 3 man, backyard mechanics. Well, today, most of that kind of work would be illegal because you're zoned residential, and we can't have a mechanic shop in a place that's zoned residential. And so all of these things, and we can't build a car that doesn't go through all these compliance things. And so all of this regulatory climate eliminates from the marketplace the creativity and innovation that people at small scale birthing babies, prototype babies of entrepreneurship can't birth them because the baby has to be too big to be birthed to comply with government regulations. And so we've dug ourselves into this, into this hole, and I think that there are tremendous ways. I mean, for example, there's no reason at all for housing subdivisions to be stick houses anymore. They should all be earth bermed, earth sheltered. To take advantage of earth heat. They should all have solariums on them, so they can grow their vegetables and have passive solar heat. I mean, this is not high tech stuff. This is basic stuff. So as I see it, there is a tremendous amount of wealth and just and I'll just say growth in stewardship, growth in happiness, growth in self-reliance, growth in, there's a lot of ways to grow that don't require using up more of our resources. And I don't think anybody actually, I don't think very few people believe that, and certainly very few people articulate it. We've got to grow. We've got to have 3% GDP growth a year. And if we don't have 3% GDP growth, we're just going to collapse. And that's not true. What if we eliminated half of our prisons? What if we eliminated half of our juvenile delinquency programs? What if we eliminated, think of the wealth and the growth as a culture that we could have. It wouldn't be money, but it would be true growth.
Yeah, I tell a lot of the people on my lives, I do a live every Friday night at 7:00, and I tell them all the time about it's time in our culture to redefine what success is and to take a hard look at what that really means, because it's not working 40 years at a job to which at the end, you get a gold watch and you're told to piss off. There's something else there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what we're talking about, is maybe we just have to take a hard look at what success really means. It's not 3% GDP growth.
Yeah. Or for that matter, what is true wealth?
There you go. That's perfect. Yes.
What is true wealth? I mean,
yes.
What millionaire going through a divorce with kids who hate him wouldn't rather give it all back to have the love of his spouse and the respect of his kids?
Yeah.
I mean, that's wealth.
Yeah.
And so wealth can be, health. I mean, I'll take health over a lot of things.
Yeah.
And as people who are actually thinking, see the wheels start to fall off, a dysfunction of our culture. This is what's driving the wellness movement right now, because if the wheels fall off, there's one thing you don't want to be. You don't want to be sick. You don't want to be the one back in the back bedroom saying, hey, as y'all run out the front door, would you pick me up and take me with you?
Yeah.
And so we're seeing just an explosion of interest in again, unorthodox, from everything from herbalists to acupuncture, iridology, naturopathy, homeopathy, all these things. Why? Because people don't trust the MD anymore, because the MD followed Fauci. Fauci's a liar. And
right.
so we're back to this self-reliance. I'm gonna find a new tribe, a new people to hang out with.
Yeah, Joel, it's we've been at this 52 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a busy guy, but I got two more questions really one question on one topic.
All right.
My last question that I have for you is, what do we the people do? We got all these great new appointees and all these things we're excited about, but we should not let them stand alone. What can we do to help this process? Do you have any advice for us?
Oh yeah. So if you start down an agenda,
mm-hmm.
We live in a time where defunding is a new word. When you and I were kids, we never heard the word defund something. But today, defund is it's the trophy, we're going to defund. And so I think it's fair to make a list, if you will, of what you'd like to defund. And it'll be different for different people, but what we need to do is realize that where we are as a culture today is a physical manifestation of trillions and trillions, the accumulated manifestation of trillions and trillions of decisions that we have made and our ancestors have made throughout history up to today. And where we're going to be 10 years, 20 years from now is also going to be the cumulative effect of trillions of decisions we make between now and then. And so it really comes down to intentional decisions and actually looking at our lives from an intentional decision-making stand, and you can make a list. Here's what I want to see progress. Here's what I want to fund, and here's what I want to defund. And so if you don't like the medical system, well, start opting out and find. I've been known to say that my new 401k plan is knowing or being close to people who know how to grow things, fix things, and build things. And so forget Netflix. Invite a neighbor who has a medicine cabinet they've made out of their own herb garden. Invite them over to dinner. Build a relationship with somebody that has a skill set that can allow you to defund the drug companies and instead fund, something else. So you've got water. You can put in a cistern, get your rainwater off, and get a cistern. You can put a solarium on your house, cut your energy bills. I mean, if you don't want to pay energy and you don't want to pay the water bill and you want to do some of these things, then just begin starting to fund an alternative universe where you are. And maybe it's just something as simple as a quart jar of mung beans to sprout on the windowsill. Okay. But you don't have to buy those at the supermarket. I ran into a couple that buys, they've got several kids, and they buy rolled oatmeal. They buy rolled oats in a 50-pound bag. You can buy a 50-pound bag of rolled oats for the same price as about 2 boxes of cereal. So you don't have to buy any cereal. There's no reason to buy breakfast cereal. Teresa, we make ours. She goes to the bulk food store and gets sunflower seeds and different things and roast it in the oven. It's wonderful. We make our own granola, and so just start looking at where you can defund what you don't like. You can make a list of that. It's real easy to make a list of things you don't like, and then things that you want to take those funds and fund something that's possible or that's positive, and you'll be up and running. I mean, people who know me, I'll show this to you. I'm still a flip phone guy. Okay, now I listen, Tag. I just don't want to walk around all day with something that listens to me. I just don't. And so I'm not saying that it's a sin to have a smartphone. Okay. But for me, this has now become almost a badge of honor. That where you actually just, what am I going to say? Thumb your nose at the World Economic Forum. What would irritate the World Economic Forum? If you could do something that irritates the World Economic Forum, make a list of those things and do them. And that means grow some of your own food, disentangle from the electronic system, get off of TikTok, and don't just continue to patronize the that system.
Yeah, you need to change your tagline to the environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic flip phone farmer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Put that in there. Hey, I think this has been a great conversation. I got one more topic I want to talk about before we go. But,
all right.
Really what I want the audience to take out of this today is what Joel said, and I think it's absolutely great advice. First is be intentional, right? Do it on purpose. Right. And if we do that, then we're going to manifest the next generation.
Yeah.
We just focus on those things, which I think is fabulous. But real quick, before I get you out of here tonight, I want to talk about, we have an amazing thing coming on May it's about the 6th through the 11th in this next year. Our community throws a big festival. We do it twice a year. It's called the Midwest Preparedness Project. And for those who don't know, Mr. Joe Salatin will be down. He'll be at my farm on the 8th and then at the festival the 9th and the 10th. And so we're going to spend a lot of time with you, Joel. I just want to tell you, I'm super excited about you coming down and experiencing the community.
Yes, I am too. I'm totally stoked. Totally stoked. Yeah.
It's going to be super, super exciting. And also I wanted to mention to you, we have a young man in our audience named Wyatt tonight. And Wyatt is coming to see you in December. He's part of your program. And so I just wanted to tell Wyatt, you make sure you represent Kansas well, young man. All of our reputation is on the line and it's on you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I said that because I seen him so much in there. But Joel, it's been an hour. I appreciate everything you do. Everybody, come see us at the Midwest Preparedness Project. Come see Joel at my farm. Get involved. Do something. Be intentional. Make your list of the things you don't like. And if we all come together, and we all come together right now, we can live a better life. And more importantly, we can leave a better life.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Any final words, Joel?
No, don't underestimate the power of one decision executed well. That's the key. Yeah.
Great advice. And everybody, I'll see you guys at 7:00 tonight. Good night. I'll see you then.